Hello friends, in today's video I'm going to show you a fragment of my own game where I'm going to teach you an instructive idea that I like to use in Benoni and King's Indian type structures, and hopefully you can implement this in your own game and use it in the future. Now before we get to that concrete position where that idea was applied, I would like to talk a little bit about the structure in general, how white is finding an advantage in these type of positions, and in a couple of moves we're gonna get to our critical position of this video. Now in general, white here has big space advantage. Now, I like to differentiate between space and space advantage, as I think that not always advanced pawns, which give space, is an advantage. Sometimes it could also be a disadvantage. So I like to ask myself if these pawns d5, c4, e4, which are in the heart of black's position, controlling territory and squares in their camp, are restricting at least a single minor piece of theirs, of opponents. I like to only refer to bishops and knights. Sometimes in the endgames you could find positions where we're restricting the king, very rarely queen and rooks though. So let's ask ourselves this question: is any of the bishops currently, or the knights, finding it hard to get to active squares, bishops on long diagonals, knights to outposts or squares around the middle, because of the pawn structure of mine and theirs? And the answer is yes. Although the knight on f6 is good and the bishop on g7 is on the long diagonal, I think that these two pieces are not well placed for black, or at least they could be better, or at the very least they're worse than white's placed pieces. So if we compare the knight on c3, it's in the center, whereas the knight on d7, not a very bad piece per se, but definitely inferior to the knight on c3. And the problem is that there is not much they can do to improve that knight, as if they go to e5, which is technically possible, then they would just allow white to damage their pawn structure, which would not only give them double pawns, e7 and e5, but also close their dark square bishop, which would make that dark square bishop into a bad piece in the future. So white would just be in that case exchanging space advantage for another type of advantage, which is better pawn structure. And the bishop on c8, although that's per se their good bishop, it's opposite color to their pawns in the middle that are fixed. However, it's definitely misplaced, and black is always looking for where it could be placed better, because c8 is not the most sympathetic square, and if you look around the board, there are not that many alternatives to that square. On the other hand, white has quite a few squares to choose. If, say, they don't like the knight on f3, bam, bam, we can reroute it to a square like d3, if you like it better there. The bishop could choose from e3, f4, g5, and that's the luxury that white has over black due to this space advantage. Not just space, but precisely space advantage. And in order for black to create something which is space and room for their own pieces, they're playing rook to b8, which is an instructive try, and they're hoping to get this break pawn to b5. Now, there are many moves for white to play here. I think there could be like 10 good moves. My preference was queen c2 in this game. Maybe in the next game I would choose something else, precisely because I want to bolster the point on e4. Sometimes in these positions, black has the idea of playing b5 and trying to deflect the defender of the e4 pawn, which is the knight on c3 in this case. Although I'm gonna give you a bad line, but just want to show you a point. Imagine that black plays b5 now, or even a moment later. Let's say we play bishop e3, b5, we take, and of course if bishop takes, white has a fantastic position, but let's say white could only take with the knight to show you the point, then this e4 pawn drops, and black is always happy to exchange this sideways pawn, which is on b5, for the white centralized pawn on e4. So you could say that queen c2 is prophylaxis, even though black did not have a threat, but I'm keeping more eyes on that pawn that may get vulnerable. There are other ideas connected to queen c2, like you could say I'm leaving the d1 square, which may or I may not use for the rook. I am over attacking f5 or preparing maybe in very long future f4, f5 ideas of my own, but it hasn't gotten to a concrete shape, and it's unclear if we're gonna have that functionality by the queen on c2. So black is playing very interestingly. He plays knight e8, which is consistent with their original idea of rook to b8, they're trying to play knight c7 and just bolster that point b5, which would eventually give them some space on the queen side. So I played bishop e3, a simple developing move. I bet there were like 10 alternatives. Black plays knight to c7, and here I use that idea. This is that concrete moment of why I'm showing you this video. And I'm playing rook a to b1. Now, it's not only prophylactic to get rook out of this long diagonal, but after b5, my intention is to play b4, and you're going to see why exactly am I going for that. An alternative, of course, for white was to play a4 and simply stop b5, and it is okay for black to give up the square on b4 in general. Some people say that it's not good to give up that square because the knight is gonna get to b4, but the point is that this knight on b4 is not generate enough counterplay for black, as the space is something that they won't get on the queen side. We say goodbye to the pawn break b5 now, and white is just going to play on the king side. So you would have like ideas like rook a e1 and maybe even for f4 e5s or f4 f5s, just squeeze black and attack them on the king side. So this was a very strong alternative, and there are many more alternatives I bet in this position again. And I played rook a b1, black plays b5, and here we take. Doesn't matter if black takes with pawn or knight, we would do the same thing. They took with the knight, and takes, and this would be very, very good for black if not for our move b4, because as you can see, they already exchanged one minor piece, which is welcome for black as they have space advantage. They have gotten some space on the queen side, and perhaps they could generate counter polarity there. But I play b4, and at first this idea does not seem to change things. Like, how does this pawn move make it very good for white again? And perhaps black could choose one of the three options here, which is to take, push, or not do anything at all, and we have an answer for all of those three variations. So if they don't do anything at all, it's, as I like to say, pina coladas for white. We're just applying huge pressure on c5 and b5, and it's going to be hard not to drop anything. So then white would just be playing against those pawns. Now, if they take, which did not happen in the game, white can simply take back with the rook. Now, next plan of white is very easy. Double on the b file. We can play knight d4, we can play bishop to d4, and both players have perhaps chronic weaknesses, b5 and a2, but black's pawn is gonna drop and white's pawn is not going to drop. So in fact, this b5 pawn is just very, very weak, and black is gonna have a big headaches defending that, and likely it's going to drop, or white is gonna be a pawn up and with outside pass pawn on the queen side, practically probably winning game. And what happened in the game, and I think most of the people would play c4 here. Again, there is probably more than one move. You could try a4, which is a very good pawn break. I thought about this as a main alternative, but I played the move knight d4, and I think it's also practically a fantastic move. So I'm right now going to c6 square, where I would attack queen, I would attack rook, I would attack e7. I'm also attacking b5, and one of my next ideas is also going to be a4, just to undermine the defender of the c4 pawn. And there are no good moves here for black, I suppose, which would get them out of trouble. For example, they could be trying to take the knight, but now white is going to continue with their plan, play a4 next, and likely both pawns may drop. Plus, white has right now amazing dark square bishop. You have exchanges, black the main defender of your king. It's not only the bishop pair, but just look at that bishop. Like, have you ever seen in your life a better bishop than that? And even kingside attacks at some point may be a feasible plan for white, although for now I would be looking at a4. Now, if they just run away, for example, rook b7, because they have to keep an eye on b5 pawn, and they cannot go to b6 because it seems like the rook is gonna get hit again. So if they go, for instance, rook to b7, then I could just go knight c6, hit the queen and the pawn. The only way not to drop the pawn is queen e8, and now a4. And black's pieces seem to be much worse than white's. And after, say, takes and takes, white has easy game. So a4 is likely gonna drop. We can develop initiative with rook fc1, bishop a6, and practically white is just winning. So in our game, black blundered with a tactic. They played knight to e5, and then after f4, we got a fork and we won the game. So hopefully you enjoyed this analysis of this structure. As always, there were many alternatives, but I wanted to show you this perhaps not so known idea amongst amateurs. Rook a b1 followed by b4 as a response to b5. Masters know this idea for ages probably. It's not something I invented, definitely. If you enjoyed this, please subscribe to my chess channel for more such videos. You can also consider hiring me as your personal online chess coach. I do this for a living for the last 10 years. My contacts are on the right. Stay healthy, my friends, and see you in the next video. Bye.